So Alessi completed his cross-examination of Ian Whiffen, the digital forensic analyst from Cellbrain. He embarrassed that man. He absolutely embarrassed that man. It was quite interesting. I absolutely love Alessi. I don't think I've really stated how much I love him, because he is a little bit on the long-winded side, but he is very conscious of making sure to speak clearly. But he know how to embarrass somebody without embarrassing himself. He did a great job. So one of the first things that he asked him was, within your report, it states that you could not with certainty say that he was moving towards the house. Meaning you can't say firmly that he was not moving towards the house, that John O'Keefe wasn't moving towards the house. And he was like, correct. He's like, but it was important enough to add in your report, but y'all didn't mention that yesterday in your presentation. It didn't make it to the PowerPoint. He was like, well, correct. Why was it important enough to have in the report, deep down in the report, but it wasn't important to mention? Very telling. And when he showed the presentation yesterday, like they had circles around certain areas saying, oh, John was in this area, but he probably wasn't in this area. But when Alessi, got him to break things down, it was like, oh, well, he was actually within this area, which was like a white circle on the documentation that they brought. And he was like, so he could have been in that area, which is the house. He's like, well, yeah. Sir, why do you make it seem like he never stepped foot in the house and that it was impossible to believe that he went in the house? And then today you're able to say, yes, it is possible. That's very misleading, because if it's possible, it's possible. And if that's where it was, you should have left it there. Not with certainty yesterday, but all of a sudden today, there's no certainty that he didn't step into that house. And within the report, it does state some things that could kind of hinder that level of certainty, which included a building like the house or the garage. It could be weather, things of that sort. And he said, yes, those things could be a factor as to why you would say without certainty whether he did this or he did that. So he could have went in the house is pretty much the gist of that data that he actually documents in his report. And then Alessi asked him, did he read the report that Trooper Guarino had written? And he said, no, I don't remember reading that report. And he's like, well, isn't he the person that would have provided you the data that you needed to actually complete your own report? And he's like, yeah, but I didn't talk to him. He sent you the data, but you didn't talk to that man? Not somebody else sent him the data, and I didn't talk to him because of that. He sent it to you directly, but you didn't talk to him? How did y'all not talk? Like he just randomly sent you information and you just believed it was him? I found that to be a little bit weird. Y'all did communicate. Even if it was, hey, these are my reports. I'm going to go ahead and send them over. Can I verify your email address? Anything, like, that would still be communicating, right? Like, it didn't have to be we was buddy-buddy, but to say I don't remember talking to him, we never communicated, even though we know the reports were sent directly to you from him. Make it make sense. But within Trooper Guarino's report, it does state that the distance between the flagpole and the front door is 72 feet. And within Ian's report, it states that he did 84 feet. So that would be, the distance is longer than that front door to that flagpole. So he could have went inside the house, because there's a difference between those distances, right? And he says yes. So he pretty much confirmed on the stand that it is very likely that he did go inside that home, because he took 84 feet from that flagpole, and it's only a measurement of 72 feet. So where did them other feet come from? He did some walking into that house. Or was he pacing? Like, how we get there? He did confirm that information on the stand, and I think that was definitely the kind of gotcha moment where you're saying you didn't read this report that he wrote, and distance from that flagpole to that door is a shorter distance than what you have documented is actually what he took once he got out of the vehicle that Karen was in. Very telling. And then he stated in his report that he did 2 different tests to kind of determine the temperature of the phone that John O'Keefe had, and he stated that he didn't even check the temperature of one of the environments, which was a deep freezer, like a deep freezer chest that you may have like in your garage, with like you get your meats and stuff. He didn't even check the temperature on that. He just put the phone in there. And in that data, it says that the temperature drops like quite drastically within an hour. And that didn't compare to how the time frame of John's temperature on his phone was going down. But when Alessi asked him, did you check the temperature, he said no. So what data are you comparing it to, sir, if you just randomly put it in the freezer? Everybody can put their freezer on different temperatures. So you didn't check what temperature of the freezer you used was on? What was the point of the experiment? That was the point of the experiment, right? Was to test the temperature, and you didn't check the temperature? Because the temperature on my deep freezer is going to be different than somebody else's, because different factors. I live in a completely different state, so what the temperature is in another state affects how the temperature is in my state. It's hot here. My temperature is all the way up sky high because it's hot here. But someplace colder, you're going to put on a little bit different temperature. But you didn't check the temperature? That's ineffective data, actually, sir. And then he kind of let it slip out that he had discussed the information in his report. And it kind of sounded like, it did sound like he did try and clean it up, but it did sound like he had talked to the troopers about the information that he was, recording. And he kind of cleaned it up and was like, oh, well, no, I talked to Hank about it. So the information y'all discussed was not in the report, but you discussed it with somebody. He tried to clean it up and say it was Hank, before he was getting on the stand. Oh, okay, sir. We'll take that, but you did discuss it with someone before you completed your report, and it's not in your report, the information that you discussed that has been brought out on the stand. And then the second biggest gotcha moment is that he pretty much stated that the 227 data was removed from Cellbrite's system because it was confusing. He's pretty much stating, they changed the system right after this original report was done, and they did so because the information was confusing. It was a full internal thing that they did with their system. And so Alessi was like, but that data is still in the system of one of your competitors, right? And he said, well, yeah, I believe it still is. And he said, but they're, very reputable company, correct? He said, yeah. Yeah, so your competitor still has this information, which means it happened, but y'all removed it from your system because it was confusing? So y'all went in and made a whole system change because it was confusing to other people. Me personally, that indicates that you will be able to be swayed, because that's what that sounds like. Why do you conveniently making changes to your system that will help a case in the midst of? Because don't get it twisted. System changes happen all the time, but you need to be able to explain that system change, because the system changes, they have to go through a whole process of approval. So y'all should have been able to explain that better than it was confusing to other people. That's not why you make system changes. You make system changes because it makes the system work better based on the work that y'all are doing, not because somebody is confused. That's not the goal of, making updates in your system. And Jenn is expected to be on the stand next. Her and her sisters are in court today. And then John O'Keefe's dad is in court today. And I didn't know him and his wife were separated. There are rumors that they have been separated for a while now, and that he lives in a different place than her, because she lives at John's old house, and I believe he still lives at their old house. But they separated. But he was in court. They were sitting next to each other, but he has not been there in a while. I don't think he's been there at all on the retrial so far. But he was in court today, so the next couple of days should be quite interesting, it seems. We are still dealing with Ian, but most of the meat and potatoes has already been out so far today. That was the meat and potatoes. What happened yesterday and then today so far. So we're waiting on Jenn to go and take the stand next. I got my popcorn ready because Jenn McCabe has taken the stand, and I am ready for the shenanigans. as expected, Jenn came with the shenanigans. She came with the shenanigans. So she did go ahead and start and go over how her and Karen met. Because her and Karen both have MS, John thought they would be, you know, good people to kind of have a friendship amongst each other. And so he introduced them based on, you know, that shared, you know, MS that they have. And so that's kind of how their relationship started, through John. Now, they went through kind of that, their back history, her connection to everybody else kind of that's related to this incident. She went through everything that she did up until she got to the bar that night. So they went over all of those details, of course. And then they show video footage of when John and Karen got to the bar, and she is on camera like clapping, like she's oh so excited that they are there. And she explains why she's clapping. I was excited to see them. I was happy they were there. Now, of course, everybody was drinking, but she said when she got back to the Alberts, she did not have anything additional to drink. So the only thing that she drank was what she drank when she was out at the bar. And then she states, you know, they did their thing there. She remembers seeing him and Karen pulling up, and she told them to park behind her, and then that was kind of it on that. And then she went into when she got the phone call from Kaylee, who called because Karen did not have Jenn's number. And she's like, you know, oh, all I heard was Karen screaming through the phone. She was screaming so loud that my husband woke up and he thought one of the kids were in the room because she was screaming that loud. Girl. So she talks about the conversation they briefly have, and then she gets up and kind of is starting to get ready because she's preparing for to go help and find John. Now, she states that her husband had to remind her that Karen, that she said she had saw Karen and John pull up at her sister's house, and that she didn't immediately remember that on her own, that he had to kind of bring that back to her memory. Now, this is the shenanigans where it starts, because she bust out and said in the phone call with Karen, Karen told her that, you know, oh, could I have hit him? Maybe I hit him. She's saying this all in this phone call. She's saying she left John. She doesn't remember where she left him. Well, she's saying she left John. She remembers going to the bar. She doesn't remember what happened after that. She doesn't remember, you know, what's going on. And she tells her that she has there's a crack in her tail light. So she's saying all this stuff happened in one conversation before she even physically was in front of Karen. That Karen is spilling all this information to her over the phone. Ma'am, stop. Please stop. Like, this was not previously said that she done told her whole life story in this one call, ma'am. I'm not believing it. I'm really not believing it. And she said when she hung up the phone with her, in the midst of that, while she was kind of getting ready, she was like, you know, well, where is John if she left him, you know, because I know she brought him to my sister's house. Where is he at if, you know, she brought him over there? Maybe like he left or something, but where is he at? That's her thought process while she's waiting. So she's thinking maybe he could have been at some guy named Tom Beatty's house, and so she calls him to try and see if maybe John is with him. I don't remember anything about no Tom Beatty before, so that sounds like some new information to me as well. But she says that she called him and tried to see if, you know, John was with him, and he was not. And so she's just trying, in her mind, she's thinking of where, you know, could John possibly be. Now, she says that she knew Karen was at her house because she heard Karen outside yelling. She says Karen showed up to her house and just was out there yelling. Karen came to your house, ma'am, and she was out there yelling like that. Your neighbors would have heard her yelling. Where the neighbors at, okay? I want to hear from the neighbors, because I'm going to hear somebody yelling outside of my neighbor's house at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm a light sleeper. I'm going to hear them. She should have woke up the whole house. Everybody in the house should have been like, yeah, she was out there yelling. But she was outside yelling, according to Jenn. Now, she bust out and said everything that Karen said, she said it in 3. So she would say everything 3 times, and then she would change the subject. I think that's new as well. Because some people, because it's been going back and forth. Oh, this person said she said something 2 times. Then this person said she said it 3 times. But Jenn, out of her mouth today, said that Karen says everything 3 times, and then she'll just change to a different subject. So are you counting every time? That active listening, all right? That's not that active listening. Now, she also stated that when they were in the car on the way back to Fairview Drive, that, of course, they mentioned this conversation about Bella. But then she busts out today and said that there was some other lady that he used to date a few years back, and she stayed like a street over, and it was like maybe he walked over there. Why would y'all be in the vehicle with his current girlfriend talking about all these other chicks that he dated? Sounds like sabotage. Like, why would you even bring them up? Like, there is no way, shape, or form you'd be bringing all these different women up, and I'm in the vehicle with y'all trying to look for my man, and y'all talking about his other chicks. Like, absolutely not. Y'all would have got popped talking about them other females in the midst of me trying to find this man. And that was as far as they got on direct examination today. They definitely will not be finished with questioning her. It's probably going to be until about lunchtime tomorrow before they're done with direct with her. So we still have more, direct examination for her, but that will of course happen tomorrow. After she left, they did go ahead and finish up their little ARCA conversation. So Auntie Bev let Brendan get up to finish his little argument about why he does not want ARCA to come in. He stated he wanted every single thing that they said to be struck, and what they previously testified to, what they said they found new, all of that. He wanted everything tossed out the window. He said everything was very intentional, that Mr. Wolf got rid of them messages, and he absolutely ignored them court orders because the court order said to send it to the court directly instead of sending it to the defense, and he just thinks they did this. He went on and on. He's real tense with them. It's in that crunch in the neck. He's tense with them. And then Auntie Belle bust out and told Alyssa, I have one question for you, and I just want you to briefly answer that. Like, make your answer quick. And he said, well, can I go to the podium? She said, no, stay right there. You let Brendan go to the podium, but you want him to stay right there for this one question? And she bust out with the law and everything. Well, in such and such of such and such, it says that, communication is supposed to be kept for 10 years. Like, how do I get past that? And he started trying to answer, and I guess she gave him a look like she wasn't gonna let him finish. And he was like, can I at least finish? Yeah, Bev, can he finish? Because you told him to answer your question, your one question. And he said, well, ma'am, that question, that doesn't apply to communication. Like, you can't control his communication. That communication is on the attorney. The attorney is supposed to keep their stuff for 10 years, not him. He's not an attorney. Like, that, those rules don't apply to him. And she kind of cut him off. And she was like, well, you're going to win, so let me just go ahead and make my ruling. So why you do all this extraness, ma'am? Why? She's so aggy with stuff sometimes. It's like, why ask him a question just so you can say on record that you asked him a question, and then you gonna rule in his favor anyway? It was unnecessary. She did say, it does seem like multiple, things have happened on y'all's behalf, but I'm going to allow them to go ahead and, bring in all of their testimony, all of it. So whatever they previously testified to, any new, information they have, brought upon, their new report that they're working on, y'all will have that full report on the 7th when they, finalize it. Like, a person is entitled to a fair trial, and we're going to allow her to have her fair. Thanks, Auntie Bev. She's required to have her fair trial, and we're going to make sure she has her fair trial. So she only let the information in after she did all this little ranting and raving and all that jazz. She did state pretty much that she was going to allow the direct and cross to be dealt with how they see fit. So they are allowed to, provide their information with her regrets, because she does not feel great about it, but she knows she has to. So she is allowing it in. But all this around the world stuff, babe, let's nip it in the bud, okay? Just stop. It's time to woo-side and let it go, and let's move appropriately through the rest of this trial. That would be real helpful.